It's really nice to see everyone here, so thank you for coming in. And we really appreciate all your support, and the students really appreciate all your support. You've done a fantastic job, got some outstanding students, and it's so great. We appreciate the work they've done over this semester. As we look up here, our Bartleby vision, become America's model school. So if you look at all the executed super schools, some of them got lots and lots, a couple $1 million to build a whole new building. We are the only one, and through the work of the students and the work of a lot of these teachers like Daniel and Alex and Dustin, and Dr. Gardenhauer and Mr. Boatman, able to get that $200,000 grant from the Execute Super Schools. And so we started that, but we're the one in the whole country that is actually doing this within a structure of a high school. So we already have a tremendous high school there, as it says there, into the existing structure of an already tremendous high school, Elizabethton High School. So we're very fortunate to have Elizabethton High School. And so we're fitting it into it. So we're actually the model school across the whole country to show how we can do that within the structure of a tremendous, beautiful high school. And the man that leads that high school, Mr. Josh Boatman here, and he's going to come in and welcome you all. He does a fantastic job along with Dr. Corey Gardenhauer and Mr. Richard Van Huss, who is an assistant superintendent, and all the school board. You guys do a fantastic job. Thanks so much for welcome.
Good morning, everybody. I'll be brief and let you get to the exciting part of this. The teachers are working so hard with our students. On behalf of Elizabethton City School System, we first welcome you this morning. We're so grateful that you came and are giving up part of your day to come and hear what our students are doing, what our teachers are doing, and just this exciting process that we're undertaking. Let me first thank Mr. Daniel Quinn and Mr. Jackson here for letting us be here this morning. This is a beautiful facility, and they've been very gracious to let us use this. We're very, very excited this morning to share some of the hard work, the dedication, the passion that we've seen come to fruition with our students this semester, and that we're hoping to see continue going. I think as you talk to the students, as you hear from the teachers, you'll be just as blown away as I am every single day at how hard they're working, at the passion they have for not only their education, but for our community as well. It's very, very inspiring, and it's just a breath of fresh air every day. Many of the things that you're going to hear about this morning are already happening, that we've worked into our schedule, into our classes at the high school. They are in full board going on and making a great difference already. Some of the things you're going to hear about are our vision, things that we've not worked into practice yet, but we're very, very excited to do, and to see how that fits into that kind of staple of traditional high school that Mr. Smith just talked about. That's been our challenge, and we've accepted it wholeheartedly. And it's how can we take this passion of our students and this information that they've told us, and how they want to combine their education with their community and with what's best for them. How can we take that and fit into this century-old model of what a high school is supposed to look like? So as you listen to our students and our teachers this morning, I hope you keep that in mind, and that you'll jump on board the journey with us. Again, thank you for coming. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Alex again.
Yeah, I see a lot of friendly faces. People I saw last October, if you were here, many of you guys were here, you remember that? And really that was about the fact that we had just won the award, and now we're trying to figure out what to do with it, like the dog that Tom McCarty chased, right? And so today, I know we do have a lot of new people here, and if you're anything like me, in 14 months, you can do quite a bit. So real quick, we're just going to kind of rehash exactly what happened, the idea the students had, the original idea, and then we're going to move into some more things for you guys to look at. I'm going to step up here just where I can see that a little bit. And with the prodding of Dustin up there, I decided to call it the $200,000 lesson. So I like to do projects in my class, but this project turned into a really neat one where the kids learned about $200,000 worth. And so that's kind of how I've been referring to it. But I am a teacher at Elizabethton High School, and Dustin found out about the XQ competition, and I just said, hey, let's let the kids try as part of my sociology class. And they did a good job with it. So it's called the XQ Super School Project, and the real challenge was for us to rethink high school. We've had our modern high school system for about 100 years, and the modern system came about in about a decade. And so they were thinking that what's going to happen in the next 100 years? Jobs are changing, technology is changing. So maybe we need to rethink high school for the next 100 years and really start something that could change all of education in just a few years like happened 100 years ago. So it was a pretty difficult thing. They let anybody that wanted to enter. This could be entrepreneurs, it could be free thinkers, educational experts. I mean, anybody could submit a school idea. And later on, we found out that I believe ours was the only one that was basically made up of entirely students. And I knew going in that was going to be difficult because there's a lot of things that 14 to 18-year-olds don't know about laws and legal issues and all the things we deal with, administration and government. But they did have some really unique advantages. And that was that they were in school right now. And they know what they want for the future. They know how they learn. They have the fears about, am I ready for the job market and how it's changing. So yes, they had some things that were going to have to really work hard to make up. But I think they also had some unique advantages that no other team had. So we read, we researched, we wrote, and I've never had a student create a 70-page research project. But that's what they did. And I really didn't have to threaten them too much. They really wanted to do it. They got interested in it. And they realized that what they were doing could change things. And maybe not so much for them. Because they knew that by the time all these things were in place, most of them would be gone. And even now, all of them are gone except 4. But they wanted to change it for everybody else and what was going to come after them. Originally, they had $100 million and they were going to give 10 school awards for $10 million apiece. But we got a nice surprise when they told us that they were actually going to have 13 recipients and we were going to receive $200,000 for the work. So that was great. This is the actual picture that was taken when we found out on the live stream that we had won and we're going to receive this amount of money and that the students could actually put their dreams into a reality. And the interesting part is the administration, central office people might be more excited than the students. Those are the adults in the back. So they were really excited too. But it was a really neat project that kind of brought a lot of people together. So that was great. And of course, each student also got a small scholarship for college as well. So what was the idea? What won the $200,000? What made them 13, the top 13 out of how many schools? 7,000? About 7,000 school designs. What made them so good? Why did they win? So let's just look at a few nuts and bolts of the program they put together. One was they wanted students to learn to love learning. You can never predict what jobs are going to exist or what knowledge skills will be needed in 100 years. But they felt if they loved learning and they were passionate about what they were doing, they could be able to pick up whatever they needed to be successful. They also wanted to solve problems and be creative and come up with new, unique things. They wanted to work together, not just by themselves, but maybe in small groups or people with different ages. They wanted to work with adults. They wanted to work with people outside of the school. Collaboration was going to have to be a central focus because in the future, collaboration is such a big deal, especially with the technology that we're experiencing in the world today. The problem is there's all this new knowledge and there's all these new things to be learned, but the students also realized they needed like this framework to help them understand all the new things that they'll be learning. And one of the things the students told me that really amazed me is that they said they didn't feel a connection to their community. And I thought things like social media and the internet and web pages would build that. But actually what happens is the kids know more about other parts of the country than they literally know what's going on in their hometown. So they said, we need something to help us understand our hometown, and we like our community, and what do we have here? And once we understand this, then we can integrate all these other things we're learning into it. They also want to make connections between subjects and disciplines. I think you guys understand, most of your adults, that you can't just say, I'm going to do this thing, and it's only going to involve science, or it's only going to involve math, or it's only going to involve history. They realize that in the world, when they solve real problems, it will involve all kinds of subjects working together. And they wanted to learn where they could see those connections. And they also wanted to find trends and patterns. They really felt that memorizing stuff was not the way of the future. You guys know that technology has allowed us to retrieve about anything you want on the internet in a fraction of a second. But the thing is, how do they find the patterns? How do they know what's going to happen? How do they know what's important and what to not pay attention to? they needed to understand the trends and patterns across time. And, I'm sorry. They wanted to be engaged in planning the projects, creating an entrepreneurial activity, putting these learning things together. And you guys are going to be amazed by the projects that are going on right now at the school, and you can see what they're doing with it. So the school mission and culture that they laid out was to awaken the passions of the individual. And you guys probably understand this. In your own life, you'll do a lot of things. You'll put a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of money into it, and you won't get paid a dime. And you do it because you love to do it. And they said, we love to do some things too. And we would do amazing amounts of work if you just let us work on what we were really passionate about. And they wanted to see these relationships. And they wanted to look at a variety of ways to demonstrate learning. I guess you could take a test on economics and show that you know it. But if you could build a business in 15 weeks and make it successful, that would also be a pretty good assessment of whether you knew about economics. The age mixing, we have students that are working with elementary schools and middle schools, and of course, our students are working with a lot of people in this room, adults, and they like it. They learn from other age groups. And not maybe the traditional homework of a worksheet or a review, but how do they put these things together and create something new? That's what they wanted to work on. They said that they wanted to contribute to the learning. I know a lot of people think kids hate school, they can't wait till the bell rings, they love snow days, they like it when they get out early. And I guess in some ways that's true. But the other part is, if they really feel like they're designing their own learning and they're doing what they want to do, then they'd be willing to put a lot of effort into it because they know that what they're doing is real and it really matters. They weren't afraid to take responsibility for their own actions. I know sometimes we view young people and say, they don't know how to handle responsibility. But you're going to see some very responsible young people here in just a few minutes. And they want to have a stake in our own educational system. They also invented a couple of things which I thought were pretty interesting. They like the idea of boards. And they said, how do you get the right kind of students in this school? How do you know that they really are going to work hard? And they really said, being in this school or graduating or whatever they're going to do should be like running for president. Go in front of somebody, tell them what you want to do, make them believe it. So they wanted these boards. They said, I believe if a student had to go in front of a board and say, this is what I like to do, these are my assets, and this is why I want in the program, it would really filter out everything that wasn't serious. And it's true. Knowing that you have to go in front of everybody and lay this out really makes you accountable. And I think a lot of you guys have experienced that. They also wanted new teachers who wanted to teach this way to actually show that they understood project-based learning. There's different kinds of teaching. I think most people understand that. And we've got great teachers. But they said we want to make sure that we've got teachers that know how to connect subjects, that know how to find us the experts in the adult world we need, that know how to motivate us, that know how to stand back and let us do our work and just kind of step in when they need us and guide us a little bit. So they had a little board, and there's a couple people in here that participated in our first board. And I didn't consider it insulting at all to go in front of a new board. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed sharing projects. We really had a good time. But the teacher doesn't have to be the expert. See, the good news is our community is full of experts, and many of them are sitting in this room. So I don't have to know everything about economics. I don't have to know everything about the outdoors. I don't have to know everything about trails. There are people that know that. All I have to do is be able to find a way to get my kids connected with them and help them design these projects and then just turn them loose and let them access the knowledge that's already here. And also, they wanted the teachers every 3 years to go in front of the board and just say, look, this is what I've done with my project-based classes the last 3 years. And just kind of be accountable that they really are working hard to use the project-based model to help the students learn. The significant interaction with younger children. They didn't like being isolated. All juniors they take the same English, they take the same math, they take the same science. And a lot of them talked about things like reading buddies. Elementary school, when that big old football player came down and read the little children's book, they could name the reading buddy. They could name you what they learned from the reading buddy. They could tell me the time the reading buddy told somebody to stop picking on them. They remembered little things like that. They remembered teachers that had a big impact, or coaches. They remembered a lot of people that weren't their age. And you're going to see one of these Bartleby Junior projects back here where our high school students are actually becoming teachers for our younger students. And it's an amazing project. They also wanted real-life situations. internships, job shadowing, working with local businesses, and really feel that what they were doing was real. They wanted grading to be a little bit more rigorous, done by a combination of a teacher. If you're working with a mentor, they wanted to get the mentor's input. If there was some type of board involved, which we're going to have with our entrepreneurial class, let the board kind of tell me, since they're the experts, what they think about the project. And they didn't just want a letter or a number grade. They said that literally told them nothing. If they had the hardest teacher in the school and made a 90, or the easiest teacher in the school and made 100, really what did that number represent to them? So we're going to try to provide for them a written evaluation that says, here's your strengths, here's your weaknesses, here's what you need to work on, here's what you need to continue with, so that they can actually take what they're getting from us and make themselves a better person through self-evaluation in the future. I'm not always going to be there to give them a grade. They should always be able to take what they're doing and look at it and say, how do I go forward with it? They also want a little bit more holistic way, whenever they apply for their diploma. And they want to do some presentations and some graduate things, and you're going to be learning more about that today as well. So, that was the 70-page proposal, and let me tell you how dumb I am. I literally thought that proposal was so big that everything that was ever needed to create this school would actually be in those pages. And what I've learned since then is like 1% was in those pages. And a lot of work has actually gone on the last 14 months. Many people probably say, you know, what's really going on with the Bartleby program? But there's been tons of work going on to take those 70 pages and actually turn them into a school program. And that's what everybody else is going to be talking about today. Thank you.
Alex does a tremendous job. You can see the passion and the love he has for it. He was so important to getting this whole program started, working with students who were able to get the grant and get the award, Student Leadership Award from the XQ Super Schools. I'm going to cover through this really quickly here, just some fundamental concepts of what we talked about here with Bartleby. And so if we switch over to the Bartleby School's core values, creation of students who are able to make intelligent, purposeful decisions such that through themselves they are able to impart purpose and direction to their lives. So we're taking students, and as they work through the system, they would get more and more freedom so that ultimately they therefore are being able to make their own decisions. And in life, that's what they have to do. And you see a lot of times where students, you know, they suddenly get thrown out into the world and they're not able to do that. And so what we're doing is working them through that system and allowing them the opportunity then to reach that and be able to impart purpose and direction to their lives. Critical thinking, Alex was talking about different things there, so that's one of our fundamentals. Complex communication, we do some extra things with communication. We actually have television cameras, like the one you see back there at the back of the room there, and we actually film our students because with oral communication, if you're able to speak, it actually puts them into a higher position in whatever career field they're in, if they're able to do that well. So we film them doing their presentations several times, 4 times throughout the semester, and they do a fantastic job as you watch them develop and improve. And so that's something that we do. And then one of the real key factors for that is we let them watch it. So we film it, and then they're able to then watch it, because we don't want to be someone to just correct them and say, hey, you should do this, you should look up more often, you should project better, because, you know, how long is a piece of string? It's very difficult for somebody to really grasp that from a public speaking standpoint. But if they can see themselves, then they can actually correct their own. It's self-improvement and through their own self-evaluation. So that's the way we work with our communication. Creativity is another one of our fundamentals. Teamwork and collaboration, Alex was talking about that. It's very important as they work in their teams and work in their groups. Flexibility and adaptability, that's one of the things Alex touched on. Students nowadays, as the world changes so rapidly, they need to be able to make adjustments as things go on throughout their lives. They may change career fields they never expected. New career fields may pop up. New technology will come in. So they have to be able to be flexible and adaptable to the situations that go on around them. Productivity and accountability, being productive. We talked about John Maxwell's third level of leadership is production. Leaders have to produce. So if they're going to be leaders, they have to realize that production is important. So they produce. Also accountability. So they all take accountability. And Alex was talking about that earlier, about being accountable for the results of what they've done through the time they've been working on something. Experiential learning is the process through which students develop knowledge, skills, and values from direct experiences outside the traditional academic setting. So that's what happens here with experiential learning, with them going out. They get to meet business leaders, political leaders, community leaders, college leaders. They get an opportunity to meet so many different people, and it really creates the world for them. And if you look at a lot of the top prep schools up in the Northeast, one of the things they always pride themselves on, those top prep schools, is they allow their students feel like they can contact anyone. They feel like they can reach out to anyone and be able to call the governor, call their local representative, call somebody talk to the principal, talk to the superintendent of schools. And that's what we're allowing there with the opportunity that they have to go out there among yourselves and to work and to learn from you and to be able to network with you. But not more than just networking. It's actually gaining the confidence to realize that everybody's just a person. Everybody's a person. That no matter how distinguished they are, how famous they are, how everyone is a human being. Everyone's a person. And so therefore, they get to meet and see all these people who are actually, who they maybe thought might be different from themselves, but they realize that they're all alike. There's a project proposal before they start a project, and Dustin Hensley is going to talk about some of the projects that are going on right now here in just a minute. But I want to give you this project proposal, and they have to do a lot of things. They have to come with a vision statement, a mission statement, a project sequence, partner organization they're going to work with, how to create a win-win, because what we try to do with every partner is create a win-win situation. Core standards that the project will cover, academic standards, career strands related to the project. Then they have to set to begin with the 25%, 50, 75, 100 completion landmarks, and then the signature of commitment, which is that accountability factor, the commitment they've made to the project. Then Bloom's taxonomy, and actually Dr. Corey Gardenhauer is the one that initiated this and into the program, and it's the action verb. So you have the 6 different levels. So remembering is the first level, and so anything they do, so they can create, what they have to do is create a minimum of 20 points they have to gain throughout their project, and they can choose to do it at any of the levels. And as they move up the levels, each level becomes of a higher value. So the lower level, remembering, for instance, an example, that would be a list of something, be able to list something, that would be worth 1 point. Understanding an explanation of something would be worth 2 points. Applying, like create a map. For instance, we have a historic walking tour downtown. Boston's there involved with that. So they walking tour downtown. So then they understand the researchers, they find out about it, they understand it. Then they might create a map like Elizabeth to show exactly where the buildings are and try to create that from a map perspective, applying it. 4 points then for analyzing, like maybe creating a diagram. 5 points for reaching a conclusion, evaluating something, justifying a decision, putting all the factors together and deciding on what you think is the correct judgment. And then creation synthesis, which will be the invention of the film, which will be, in the case of the walking tour, will be the finished product of the walking tour. And then the project evaluation, and the teachers and Daniel and Dustin have been doing a tremendous job on this part of it throughout this whole semester, and they work through this, and as you see there, the Bartleby fundamentals there, they evaluate that: critical thinking, complex communication, creativity, collaboration, flexibility, adaptability, productivity, and accountability. Then they have the 25, and what we have there is we have 25, 50, 75, and 100% landmark achievement evaluation. So did they achieve the landmarks they set out to begin with? So they can't adjust those landmarks, they've got to set those at the beginning. And then the presentations, so then they're also evaluated on their presentations, and it's amazing to watch how they've improved throughout each presentation that we've done. We're getting ready to do our 100% one tomorrow, and so, but it was fantastic to see what they've done so far with the students. It's an amazing group of students. Then we looked at the Bloom's taxonomy, number of Bloom's points that were achieved from the levels 4, 5, and 6. So what that does is if you get 80% of your points above levels 4, 5, and 6, 80% of those 20 points, then you're actually on honors level. So that's how we evaluate the honors level. And then ultimately, for our win-win actual results evaluation. All right. So what we're going to do now, Dustin, who also, along with Alex, along with Daniel, who are the key teachers in the start and the 3 that really pulled this together for the students. And Dustin does a tremendous job, and he's been working with the student projects. and he's going to come up and talk about the project. And then we're going to have an opportunity for a couple of the students. McKenna is going to come up here, and Abigail and Emily and Megan are going to come up and do a couple of their presentations for you. And then we'll have a 10-minute break after that for you to mingle around, and then we'll come back and do the second half of the program. But I want to introduce now Dustin Hensel.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very soft-spoken, so you would hear me all around. I'm a librarian, so I'm quiet. Get back to the beginning here. Oh, I can take the mic off. Wow, that won't have been over. Save my old man back every night tomorrow. So, like I said, I'm Dustin Hensley. I'm the librarian at Elizabeth High School, and I'm also the co-teacher of the community improvement class at Bartleby. So, with Bartleby, one of my projects, and I want to talk about why projects. Why is that a better way of doing education? Why not keep it the same way it's always been? Why not just have someone standing in front of the room and lecturing and people listening, taking notes, and then taking a test? Well, why should we change from that? You know, it created this. It created most of all of us in here. That's the way we were educated. So why would we go away from that? So up here I have one of the things that we want our students to have. I put our core values over there to the side. Terry did a great job describing those. But we want our students to be generous collaborators for tough problems. We want them to be able to see an issue and find the people they need to work with to solve that issue. And that's what all of you are here for today, and that this whole community is here for, is how can we work together to solve these problems? That whatever problem we have here in Elizabeth or Carter County or Tennessee or Appalachia, how can we have our students learn how to collaborate and solve those issues? So we want them to be able to have all of those things there to the right, that we want them to be able to be self-disciplined and to be able to investigate what the issues are. The first part of our class was look at our community, not just drive through it, but really look at our community and analyze what's happening around you. Be able to get a holistic view of Carter County and Elizabeth. What do you think the issues are? From your perspective as a teenager, what are the issues happening here in Carter County? And how can you solve that? Who can you work with to solve those issues? Who are the people in our community that can make those decisions that you can be an equal partner with? That we didn't want this to be just a simple service learning class where they show up at the animal shelter and move bags of cat litter for them or whatever, or file papers. We didn't want that experience for our students. We want them to experience actual leadership, how they could be a servant leader and lead through working. And here we've got the lifelong learning pathway. We want our students to be lifelong learners, that they love learning for the rest of their life. That so many students, by the time they hit the senior year of high school, senioritis hits, they don't learn anything ever again. That I graduated 10 years ago, still senioritis. It's pretty rough. It's hard to get rid of. I need a vaccination, I'm pretty sure. But they hit this point where they have so much fatigue from learning that they've had to listen for so long and never get to be active that they just stop loving learning. That you think about small children, all they do is ask questions to the point where it's annoying. Like, what is this? What does that? Read me that. Read me this. Can you read me this book? Kids want to learn all the time. And then something happens when they get older and they stop that. It's like, oh, please just let me take the test. Let me get this over with. Let me just write you something and give me the grade for it. Let me get out of this class. But whenever you go to college, let me just get a grade in this class and go to my career. That they stop learning, loving to learn. So we want them to be able to either try and succeed or try and fail and learn from that. And I try to let students see my failure. I try to be very vulnerable so they can see it's okay to fail. In school, we never let them fail before. Because if you fail, then, well, you've ruined your life. You lost your GPA, so you're not going to get scholarships. So you're not going to go to college, you're going to be poor your whole life. Your life was ruined because you failed this test. And there's so much high pressure that I can never fail it. I can never fail in my life. That whenever they do finally fail, they don't know what to do. There's no safety net for them there. That their life is over with and they don't know how to handle it. So we want to give them the ability to fail and learn from that in school. Because it's okay to fail. And I failed lots of things. I'm really good at failing, I've discovered. There's one thing I'm good at, is messing things up. So I don't want them to be able to learn from me and from my mistakes. That whenever I mess things up, hey, it's okay, I learned from that. I've been very open that I was an elementary librarian once. I didn't get rehired. And I learned a lot from that. So please don't get an idea that you need to teach me a lesson. Please, Dr. Gardner, just keep me on. I learned my lesson already. But no, I failed at something and I was not rehired and I didn't have a job anymore. And I learned so much from that. I've been very open to students like, hey, I went to a career and I failed at it, and it was okay. I was able to bounce back, take what I learned, and do better the next time. I hope I do it better. Please think I do it better. But I learned so much from that, and I want the students to see that in life things happen. And it's okay, you can fail and keep going. So whenever we give students tests, that if you make a 0 today and a 100 tomorrow, we call you a 50. But you're not a 50, you're 100 now. But we're punishing students for their past failure instead of rewarding from their growth that they've made from yesterday to today. So I want to be able to reward students for how much they've grown through the class. And both of ththose things are XQ learner goals. So with XQ, they have lots of different educational resources they send. So those are two of the learner goals they've had. So right now we're in our pilot, that we have 2 community-centered project-based learning classes that right now we're in the community improvement class, and that's the class that I co-teach with Daniel Prophet. And all the students that with projects today, they're in the community improvement class. And in the spring, we're going to have the entrepreneurship class that Mr. Campbell and Ms. Jessica Hayes teach. So community improvement. We often say that school's a community, that we have this building of 900 people, about 800 students, 100 faculty members, that's a small community. But we want the community to be a school, that wherever they go in Carter County and Elizabeth, and they can learn from the experts there, that they need you all to teach them and work with them, so we can make Elizabeth and Carter County the best place possible. That we have city, county, and state government officials here, that we want our students to be able to work with you and learn from them. That we talk about age mixing, and think about the ages here in this room right now, that we have people from 16 years old up to however old the oldest person here is. We have lots of different ages here, and we all work together. That when they're in school, they're with all 14 to 18-year-olds. We expect them that's the place to stay. As soon as they graduate, they're working with people that are 60 years old, that they're expected to be peers with everyone no matter what their age is. But we want to be able to give them that experience at a young age that, hey, no matter how young you are, how old you are, you can thrive in this community. And you can work with others, and you can make this place the best place possible. So here's all the projects we have going on in this fall semester. And I won't slay your television about things you can't read, but I'll let you see them there. That we have so many things going on in our small class. That we have 18 students, and they have been all over the place with the things they're doing. It's amazing to watch how much responsibility they take upon themselves if you give them the freedom to do so. If you let them know we believe in you and you can change this community for the better, it's just so awe-inspiring to watch them work. See how their brains work. That whenever they bring up issues, like I've never thought of that before. But that would never cross my mind. Now, I don't see things that way, but it's amazing to see how they see the community, how much they want to improve it, how much they want to belong in this community. They want to be involved and heard in Carter County and Elizabeth in Northeast Tennessee. So they've been doing amazing work. So I'm going to switch to the main event. Mr. Campbell said that today's like an Oreo cookie, that the best stuff's in the middle, and that would be the student projects and what they've been doing. So I'm going to let McKenna Kaiser come up and let her project strive. Thank you.
Hi, how are y'all doing today? So I'm McKenna Kaiser. I'm a junior at Elizabethton, and my project is called Strive. Strive is a team-led support group for students who struggle with mental illness such as depression, anxiety, stress. We have a kid who has Asperger's in our group. This is for kids who don't have anyone to talk to, who are isolated and just feel so alone, which are symptoms of depression a lot of times. So right here we have our mission and our vision to provide an outlet for teens to express problems and find peers who can understand and relate. And that's really the beauty of Strive. These kids, I would never imagine I had anything in common with them. We all come from different backgrounds, different families, different social statuses. But whenever you get together, you can find the beauty in them. You can see, I'm just like them. I also struggle with that. So that's really the beauty of Strive. There we go. So at Strive, we have weekly meetings. We have 4 types of meetings. Our rapport meeting, which we build support with our group. We build relationships. For example, we had a Strive Thanksgiving. We went to one of the members' house. We cooked spaghetti tacos because that's what they wanted to do. They were actually not that bad. But, so, you know, we hang out, and it's a time to distract them from their problems. Our second type of meeting is discussion-based. This is kind of like the serious meeting. You know, we'll talk about weekly problems the members are having, you know, what's going on in your lives. Our third type of meetings are the informative meetings. Later in the PowerPoint, you will see the partners I'm working with, and one of them is J.P. Abner at Milligan College. He trains me on certain subjects, so I'll go and I'll sit in on his college class. And one example that we have is divorce. So I did a support group for kids who struggle with divorced parents. A lot of times they, again, can feel alone, isolated, but whenever you're in a group and you can see 15 other kids have divorced parents and you're not the only one, then it's very helpful. So, and then our fourth type of meeting is volunteer meetings. We believe it's so important to give back to the community. We're giving these kids the opportunity to volunteer, to help, the opportunity to do these things. So, like I said, these are examples of some informative meetings that we're going to do. There's a list, and that's a picture of Sean and I. He's a member. I have known Sean since probably second grade. I had no idea what he was struggling with, and he finally opened up to me, and it's just an amazing thing whenever you can find someone and see what they're going through. So, why is this important? Who does it affect? As you can see, the statistics here are outstanding. You know, 1 in 5 people struggle with mental illness, so that's about 20% of our population. Yet only 4% of total health costs is dedicated to mental health. This is because of the stigma. Mental health is kind of shoved underneath the carpet. You know, we're not going to talk about it. It's, you know, like, don't talk about your issues. We all live a hurtful life. But really, a lot of us on the inside, we feel so broken down, and we have no one to talk to. And that's what happened to me, and that's what inspired me to get involved in this project. So like I said, 70 to 90 saw improvement in their symptoms and quality of life after participating in some form of treatment. So if you can just go to one meeting, why not? If it can improve yourself, 70 to 90%. And only 25% of adults with mental health symptoms believe that people are caring and sympathetic. That comes back again to people not relating, people not understanding, and the stigma. So here's an example of one of our calendars. You know, up there we met at Chick-fil-A one time and we played categories, and I provided dinner for them, which does get kind of pricey because I'm paying for everything off my Chick-fil-A paycheck because I work there. So we'll talk about funding in a minute. But so then the informative meeting on the 7th, we met at the public library, which we're so thankful to partner with. They let us use their meeting room, and we talked about abuse. Because I was like, what do you all want to talk about? And this kid raised his hand and he's like, you know, I've been struggling with emotional abuse. And then he saw the 18 other kids in that room talk about how they have been physically, sexually, or emotionally abused. Discussion meeting, that was the divorce. This one was, you know, I really didn't expect them to open up about this. Some of these kids I had just met that night. And then, you know, they kind of blossom like a flower. They want somebody to talk to, but they have no one. So then the reform meeting, again, that's whenever we had the spaghetti tacos for Thanksgiving, and it was a great opportunity. You know, a lot of these kids don't have supporting families, so we like to be their family. Then the volunteer meeting at Arms. So partners in the community, like I said, Dr. Abner, he's a professor of psychology at Milligan. He's been a great asset to us. He basically makes my program legit. He makes it credible. So he trains me, like I said, there's his contact information. And then Ms. Melanie Hartley, she's not here today, unfortunately, but she comes to every meeting. She's, again, such a help. She comes up with ideas and just helps me. So before we could get the support group, you know, started, it took about 2 months to get everything developed. And this was for insurance reasons. That's about mainly, you know, I had to deal with sending emails back and forth, and they said, contact this person, that person would say, contact this person. It was just like a big circle, trying to figure out who I'm supposed to talk to. So Ms. Bartleby was a huge help, and yeah. So, like I said again, why is it important? And now, here's where it gets important. It's the human reaction. My project is probably one of the only projects that affects people directly. So I believe it's so important to become an advocate for people, and that's really what Strive has become. So core standards, we have a whole bunch of psychology standards, English, sociology, and public speaking. So as you can see, you know, we're helping people, and we're doing the education standards. So, you know, we've got to knock that out too. There we go. Okay. So, like I said, why is it important? These are some memories of ours. The people that I've met during this journey has just been so touching to me. These are real kids that go to Elizabeth, and these are real kids I see in the hallway, and they'll point at me and they'll say, "It's the Strive girl," and I'm like, "I am the Strive girl." It's really just, it's not just a place to build friends, but it happens. So this is Skylar. She is in 10th grade. Those are some of the things she struggles with. And she just really wanted to make friends. The first meeting Skylar went to, she didn't say a word. The second meeting she went to, we had a basketball tournament. She was balling up on that court. Like she was going hard. So then you have Sean. He's in 9th grade, and he has a goal to be a male cheerleader. So I'll be like, we always do 2 highs, 2 lows at every meeting. So we'll say, okay, Sean, what's your 2 highs? And he's like, well, I finally got my cartwheel done. So he's working on becoming that male cheerleader. There we go. Okay, and then this is Colin. Colin is one of the brightest kids I've ever met. He is so funny and kind, and if he sees you, he'll talk to anyone. But Colin also, you know, he struggles with things, and that's a lot of times how people are. They use humor to cope with problems they're dealing with. So that's the thing. You can see the person who's smiling all the time, laughing all the time, making jokes, and they could be the person that's hurting the most in the room. But you never know that because we don't understand other people's lives. You have to put yourself in other people's shoes. And then this is Caleb. He hopes to be a firefighter. And Caleb, I have developed such a friendship with him. We talk all the time, and I'm just, you know, I'm there for him, and he's there for me. Whenever I see Caleb's face in the hallway, it really just brightens up my whole day. So, like I said, what's next? This is a tweet I would like to include. It's by Carrie Schneider. She's a part of the XQ program. This was after our first meeting. We've had about 6 meetings total. She has over 12,000 followers, and she retweeted an article that Hannah wrote about us in the Betsy Scribner. Recently this week on Monday, I had a TV interview on WJHL for Strive to spread awareness. But this is what we need. We're continuing to grow members. So right now, an average support group has 7 to 10. Our average member is around 17. That's a big group, but I don't want to stop there. I want to make this a national program. And like Mr. Hensley was saying, you can find your passion in something you love, and I have found my passion. I have found something I'm good at. You know, I've always felt this feeling inside of me. I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what I love to do, but I have found that with the Bartleby program. I have found that helping these kids has been one of the best things I will ever do. So we want to keep growing. We're branding. If you go on the back at my little station, you'll see a t-shirt. The kids love the t-shirts. I get asked if I could make them a t-shirt. I make it from my printer, but like I said, paying for all this out of my Chick-fil-A paycheck. So funding is becoming an issue because we want funding to brand group to brand the group and to, you know, make bumper stickers, t-shirts, and we want to be able to also go out and do activities. We want to take these kids to fun things like ice skating or escape rooms because these are the kids that don't have the opportunity. So, and then we also provide dinner because, like I said, a lot of them don't have dinner at home. So that's, again, the Thanksgiving meeting with spaghetti tacos, a huge hit. We probably made about 8 gallons of macaroni and then like 3 giant bowls of spaghetti sauce, 20 taco shells, and there were no leftovers, I'll tell you that. So we have a social media, an Instagram, and a Facebook. Please follow it, and please come back to my station. We have brochures and a business card, and I would love to make a partnership with each and every one of you all. Like I said, I'm just so thankful for this opportunity to build relationships with these kids. So thank you so much.
Well, that was fantastic. Gosh, Kenny, you just see the passion and love she has for it. It's just a privilege to get an opportunity for the teachers and myself to be around her with us. Our next student presentation is going to be Abigail Richardson, Emily Richardson, and Megan Young. The interesting thing about them is they started out with book clubs, and so they go out to local schools and do book clubs, but they're so passionate, again, about this that they've actually created about 5 different projects. They just keep expanding it into various different schools and into the Girls and Boys Club here in Elizabethton. So now we'll come up with Abigail, Emily, and Megan.
Okay, so I guess we can't find our PowerPoint, so let's just. Okay, well, let's just stall until then. I'm Emily Richardson. This is Megan Young. This is Abigail Richardson. We're all seniors. We're all seniors at Elizabethton High School. We all went to Westside Elementary and we went through TAW, and we were always those kids that like loved to read, but there's never anything to do with it. Like we're kind of the nerds, I guess. So when we got to high school, we're like, we want kids to see that it's cool to read, so we decided to become reading role models for kids. So we started book clubs and stuff like that. There it is. Okay, cool.
Alright, so we first heard of Bartleby during the spring of last semester, and we decided that it would be the best way to help the community. So since we love reading and are passionate about it, we decided to provide a way to get other kids to enjoy reading, because most of the time they drop it because they see it as schoolwork or homework. So we want to show them that it's something fun by being reading role models pretty much. And so we created 4 projects to achieve this goal.
So we did some research, and reading stops becoming fun for students about 5th grade to middle school, which we didn't understand because we're book nerds, so we didn't understand how that happened. So we decided to take action. So we have a book club at TAW, a book club at the Boys and Girls Club. We take high school classes down to Westside to read to them, and we started a club fair that we'll talk about. And we've gotten in contact with Judy Fletcher, Bernie, Marissa Henry, Chris Berry, and Jamie Wright. Okay, so one of our projects is called Club Reading Days at Westside. So when we were in elementary school, was it the Spanish club? The Spanish club from the high school would come down and read to us, and we thought that was the coolest thing ever. So we decided to start it again. So we take 6 clubs on like a schedule. We take Spanish, French, creative writing, book, poetry, and writing. And they read to the 5th grade students using interactive activities. And we took Mr. Church with us one time, and they did Poem in a Pocket, and they thought that was the coolest thing ever. So they really liked the interactive, hands-on things. And they also like drawing pictures with the stories. And we're going to take Bartleby in Bartleby in January to show them the new way that education is being executed.
We also started a book club at TAW. It happens every other Thursday from 3 to 3:45 in Miss Henry's room. And we try to make it as student-led as possible so they feel like it's their thing and not like sort of a class that they have to be a part of just to read. So we started reading the book Thief, which everyone voted on, and so far it's been really great to read. They're having a lot of fun talking about it and sort of the concepts that are involved. And whenever we talk about it, we try to include like state standards, sort of like, you know, the whole plot diagram thing with climax and all that. And our books come from the public librarian, Bernie Weiss, and Susan Carter, who runs the TA Library.
Okay, so the Boys and Girls Club Book Club, it's for 9 and 10-year-olds, and we meet every other Wednesday from 4 to 4:45 with Junie Wright. And we didn't want this to feel like homework as well. If they go to the Boys and Girls Club to have fun, they also do work there. So we let the 9 and 10-year-olds decide if they wanted to do book club. We didn't like force them to do it. They got to vote on what book they're reading. What are you reading? Magic Tree House. Yeah, Magic Tree House. And they have their own discussions and their own activities and stuff. So it's like the T.A. Duggar one, but a little more structured since they're a little bit younger. And then another project is we're going to have a club fair on May 9th. At T.A. Duggar, we're going to take all the clubs from the high school and take them down there. It's going to be kind of like this. We have booths set up, and all of our clubs are going to like showcase to like incoming freshmen to the 8th graders what clubs we have at the high school and what all is offered there. And there's going to be live music provided by the jazz band and the choir and our club.
All right, so Bartleby has affected all of us in a pretty big way, I'm sure. It's given us a lot more confidence in handling situations, kind of like doing this and talking to other members of the community. And we've probably gotten better at talking to kids and adults alike. And we've sent a lot of emails, a lot. And we've definitely learned how to schedule things around other events and set up schedules that actually work out well. And it's given us a lot of insight into the real world that we definitely wouldn't have gotten if we weren't in Bartleby. So we definitely improved.
So does anyone have any questions or anything? Comments? Concerns? Yes.
Tremendous job. But you can see they expanded, started out with one book club, and they just loved it so much, they loved working with the youngsters so much, they expanded it wider and wider. We're going to have a 10-minute break, but what I want to say is before, the second half, we're going to have two more student presentations. So we're going to have Sadie Whitehead's going to do Bartleby Junior, and Hannah Edwards is going to do with revitalizing Kiwanis Park. So those are two great ones. And also, for you that really love the education side, when you get Alice Campbell and Sam Church are going to come up after those two presentations, and they'll blow you away in terms of what they do and how they blend these core subjects and how they work with these students. And it makes you want to be a student again. When I get so excited listening to them, that whenever it makes me want to go back and be a student in one of their classes because that's how great they are. But we're going to go ahead and have 10 minutes, and then you get to wander around and look at all the different student projects, and then we'll come back after those 10 minutes and have two more student projects. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and get started here with the second half. Thanks very much, and it was great, everybody wandering around and speaking to the students. And you'll have another opportunity at the end to walk around with the students and speak to them again after the end of the second half. Well, our next student presentation is Sadie Whitehead, fantastic student, and she's really, you can see at Bartleby Junior, and she goes to and teaches the youngsters, and she's going to do be a I think Dr. Gardner has already offered her a job as a teacher because she's so fantastic already. And so we're looking forward to it. So here's Sadie Whitehead.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. Everybody feel good after that 7-inning stretch? Feel awake now? All right, thank you so much for coming today. Like he said, I'm Sadie Whitehead. I am founder and project manager for Bartleby Jr. I'm also a senior member of Bartleby. Okay, the mission of Bartleby Jr. is to help every child reach their potential through interesting and enriching learning experiences. Every time I come with the kids, it's a hands-on activity. It's something that's going to get them up out of their chairs. It's going to expand their mind. They're not doing what they're going to regularly be doing in the classroom. It's really trying to expand and show them that you can learn in a different way. And then our vision is to see every child find confidence through their academic successes and failures. That sounds a little rough, but honestly, every experience that you go through is a way to learn from it. Pass or fail or draw, you can learn something from it. And if one of my children, my students, make something and it doesn't work out, like we just did projects, if you didn't finish it in time, that's something to learn from. If you didn't get down all your information, that's something to learn from. Working with time management, if you had a success in something, that's something to learn from as well, and having validation in yourself and in your skills. So they can learn from every experience that they have, and that's the vision I want to see for them. The basic concept of Bartleby Jr. is an enrichment activity for the 4th and 5th grade students starting. And right now we're partnering with the Eastside Elementary, and they've been such an amazing partner with us. They've been so incredible and so supportive. But the important thing to know about the activities that I'm bringing to the kids, these activities meet their academic standards. We're hitting standards all over the place. We're hitting so many art standards with everything that we do. I'm getting them up out of their seats. And they're going to be hitting a lot of math standards, a lot of problem-solving skills, collaboration skills, a lot of very important areas for them to hit. These are the kind of subjects that we're covering, and I'm just going to talk about the ones that we've covered thus far. We've done math, which has been super awesome. I brought them a wide range of different things. We did algebra concepts one day, geometry concepts another, and the kids really enjoyed that. We actually let them make their bodies out of shapes, put them in little groups, and they had to make shapes just out of their bodies, and whoever got first got a point, and then they expected candy from me, so that happened. History was really, really cool. If I'm not going wide for a project, I want to go deep. So what I did is I took characters in history from the time periods that they're covering, and they got to pick this character, and they got to make a social media profile for it, connecting them with history, making it relevant for today. They got to talk about their early life, their families, their wives, what they were they a politician, were they an inventor, what did they do? And then also write about an event, something very important that they did in history. And they got to draw the pictures and make it all colorful and fun, so the kids loved to draw and color. It's super awesome. One of the subjects that we covered that I'm most proud of is our computer. I didn't know how the kids were going to take this, but with the help of my subject representative, Veronica Watson, who's actually a 9th grader, and I was very impressed with her maturity and how much she helped me, because I don't know squat about computers. It's bad, it's bad. I wouldn't know what to do with those kids. But essentially what happened was we used a website called scratch.mit.edu, and we made these kids a general account, so they can go back, and if they find interest in this, they can expand on their interest. But they followed a simple template and our instructions. They actually created their own Pong game. They put together all of their elements and all of their events, and they got to then design it. So this is one of my students, Bryson. And he actually went with like a baseball theme. You can see the blue up there is the sky, and then the green is the grass, and he used a baseball and a bat. And it was really cool for them to not only see how they can actually create something, but to also see how they can design it and make it cool. And I think a lot of them, that was their favorite thing, and I think they're going to continue to do that with their accounts. The process that we go through with Bartleby Jr. is kind of, it's very efficient for me, I would say, and it's kind of interesting, and it gives it a different kind of look to it. I use high school students from my school that are very well versed in certain subject areas, and we create a lesson together. We're going to sit down and create a lesson plan and talk about Would these kids enjoy this? What standards are we covering? Are we going to be able to do this? What materials are we going to need? We go down to the zeros and the ones, and we figure out what we're going to bring these kids. And then we go together, and I think the kids absolutely love seeing these high school students come in. Big football players teaching math, hilarious. It was very funny. They just loved it, like, oh, you play football? What number are you? And they like hug them after the game. It was very funny. Anyway, all my subject lessons are going to correlate with some academic standards in some capacity. I'm going to hit a standard, whether it breaks my back or not. I'm going to hit a standard. I also like to have a competitive aspect. I like to make things fun for the kids, appeal to their competitive side. I think there's nothing wrong with a little healthy competition. I like to have artistic elements applied. The kids are always using their crayons and their markers, and we're using our artistic minds a little bit. Hands-on application of ideas, the project-based learning idea, hands-on. Problem-solving aspects and practice of presentation. Also collaboration. Kids are collaborating and competing in groups and teamwork, all that kind of stuff that you don't really get from a worksheet in math class. These are human skills that you have to learn with experience. There we go. Like I said, collaboration and communication. Not only am I collaborating with the high school students, but I'm also talking to my teachers at Eastside, administration at my school, as well as other schools. My high school students, high school teachers as well, have to collaborate with them to make sure, can I pull your students out of class? Would that be okay? Would that be okay? And everybody's been so amazingly cooperative with the idea of me pulling out students from class, which has been really awesome. But we're communicating with all these groups of people in the community and in the school system, so that's been very amazing, and everybody's been so supportive. One thing that I want to hit about Bartleby Junior, and I really want everyone to understand, it's extremely flexible. Extremely. There's no time limit. There's no, this will only work for this grade. It's just a general template. The idea that you take one group of people who know something and teach another group of people who might not know that. Following a standard that might change and vary towards grades. This can be applied to, I think, any grade level. I think it could be applied to any subject. I think that if it wanted to expand more and more and more, it totally could, because it's just so flexible and so adaptable. Because we want to meet want to meet the needs of any sort of student, any students at all. All right. One thing that Bartleby Junior is doing that I love is it's planting seeds. Not only is it planting seeds in my students' minds, to know that education is more than just a worksheet. Education is more than just what you read in class. Education is hands-on. It's the subjects that you're passionate about and how you can expand on that, and the love that you have for learning and for exploring. But it's also encouraging the ideas of XQ and Bartleby in general. We want to make education and revamp it to fit this new world that we live in. Be more hands-on, be more like project-based learning. We want to continue that. If I start a seed in elementary school, we start a seed in high school, maybe we'll meet in the middle. Also, it's planting a seed in my teachers' minds. I think that whenever I come in with a project and these kids are telling their teachers about a project and I'm communicating with them about what we're doing, they can see how they can implement project-based learning in their classrooms every day. Because it has to be hard to hit all these standards, but if I show by this activity I'm hitting all these standards, they're going to know that they can do it too. That's kind of an overview of everything we talked about. Just really quick, Bartleby Junior and Bartleby in general has been such a blessing to me. I think that it's been extremely important to all of us in the class and totally changed the way we think about our community, we think about ourselves. It's constantly giving me validation, and the biggest thing that I've seen is it's all about self-motivation. The success that I have in Bartleby Junior is completely up to me and the motivation I have to get stuff done. I think that's going to be a lot like how college is, and I'm sure a lot how life is going to be, right? Also, it's helping me invest in my community more and more. I've grown up in Carter County my whole entire life. I love this community. I want to do more for it. I want to give back to it. I want to feel like a real member of it that contributes something to our community. Getting everything. Also, I can really see the importance of what XQ is trying to do. I feel like I've learned so much from Bartleby and this pilot and Bartleby Junior. It's so important that we continue to push our education to be better and better and better, so that we can make better leaders and better students and better people in general. If you have any questions for me, I'll be in my booth, and also all my contact information is on the back of our brochure. Text me day or night, email me anytime you want. I'm really not that busy.
Thanks so much, Sadie. Did a tremendous job and how passionate she is about working with Bartleby Junior. All right, we have one more student presentation. Hannah Edwards is going to come up, and she's done a fantastic job revitalizing Kiwanis Park. She works with Mike Names with Elizabeth and the Park and Recreation Department, and her partner. Some of our students aren't actually here today because they have state tests, so a few of them are missing. So Hannah actually has a partner this morning who's not here, so Hannah's going to do it all on her own, but I'm sure she'll do a fantastic job.
Well, hi everybody, I'm Hannah Edwards. I'll start off with a little background about myself. I live in Round Mountain, Tennessee, so I went to Cloudland for elementary school, and then I transferred to T.A. Dover. Now I attend Elizabeth High School, and I'm a junior. So when we came into the Bartleby program, me and Morgan, we had a vision that we just wanted to help. We didn't know how we were going to help, we just had a vision to help. And a subject that really hit Morgan hard at the heart was kids, and so I just wanted to help her with helping kids. And so we decided to revamp Kiwanis Park because one day we were driving up G Street and we saw a need. The infrastructure of the park is wooden, and so we went and did a little investigation, you might say, and we figured out that the wood was rotting and the plastic binding to the wood was wobbly where the wood was rotten. So technical difficulties. Okay, so as you can see, our idea was to help the children, and we decided that Kiwanis Park was the prime location. It's located right in the middle of Elizabethton, and even though it's in the condition it is now, we still see tons of families go and play. And we just want to improve the park. We don't want to change. We don't want to make it our own. We just want to improve the park for the families and the kids. Okay, so our idea was to, of course, replace the infrastructure and beautify the park. So landscaping, anything we can do, because if you make something pretty, the public's more likely to be drawn to it. And we just wanted to make the park overall safer. So this is what we saw when we did our investigation. As you can see, there's a wood paneling around the side because you have to have a fall space for any playground equipment you have. And under the tire swing, there's a mat that has water collecting under it, and on the side, the step up, that used to be painted. The whole playground used to be painted. So we just want to pretty it up. There's some more pictures. You can see on the picture on the right, the wood is rotting, so we didn't think that was a good thing. Oh, and there's a little house in the park, and kids use it to write provocative statements. There was a marijuana leaf on the front of it, a big marijuana leaf, and then we just have a little tunnel. It just kind of sits there. It hasn't been painted in a while, so we want to help out with that. And so what we did is we partnered with the past president of the Kiwanis Club, David LeBeau, and we presented our idea. We didn't say, here's what we're going to do. We said, we just want to help. What can we do? And he partnered us with Mike Names, with Parks and Rec, and he got us on the track. We wouldn't be where we are now without Mike. We made a needs assessment together, which we picked apart the park at whole. We met at the park, we decided what we need to do, and we partnered with David Naney too. He was with Mike. And so me and Morgan surveyed second graders at Westside and Happy Valley to collect data. And we decided off of that, like what playground equipment would be best for the park based on what they wanted. And so we met with a contractor, which is Game Time playground equipment, and we determined the price, which is around $50,000 to $75,000, which you're like, that better be a pretty good park. Well, playground equipment costs so much, it's crazy, I was amazed. And so Game Time, who we're meeting with, he's based out of Chattanooga, and they sell overseas, and their main place is in Fort Payne, Alabama. And so in November, we had our contractor meeting, and we basically have the park laid out how we would like it. It's like a 3D image on paper, basically. And by December, we're having our final meeting, which is coming up soon. And in January, we should have our budgeting complete. And we had to have votes on our plan, so we had to have so many votes in months consecutively. And the park should be implemented by July 1st of 2018, or it should be start construction by then. And there are so many standards we hit with this, it'd be impossible to put them all on PowerPoint. Here's just some of them. I mean, we hit sociology, we hit math, English, everything. History, we have to collect data, we have to write proposals, we have to do everything. So here's some standards. That's some more. Oh, and so is there any questions about the park? And I have all my info in the back, and you can ask me anything, and I'll be willing to answer. So, thank you.
We talk about the partners, and it's so crucial. All the students learn so much from going out in the community and learning from the partners, community leaders, political leaders. They're actually going to be working with Mayor Humphrey and working in the government there, Susan Robinson also. And Mike Maines, who does a tremendous job, and anybody that's not from this area, he's the head of the Parks and Recreation Department here in Elizabethton, which also makes him the general manager of the Elizabethton Twins, and they won the Appalachian League Championship again this year. He does a fantastic job. I wanted him to say a few words about it so he would give a different perspective in terms of, from the partner standpoint, about working with our students. Mike.
Thank you so much. It's good to be with y'all this morning. This is an exciting time. I mean, I have enjoyed sitting there listening to all the different projects going on and how they impact our community. That's what we're all about. So, and Corey, you don't mind if I take Hannah to the budget meeting, do you, with me in January with the city manager and mayor, and see if we can get some funding for these projects. But Hannah touched on several things, and I tell you, a lot of what we do is sometimes routine, okay? But this has been so encouraging to me to see that we have all age groups that are willing to help our community. And her and Morgan have come in. We did a needs assessment. We looked at the park. We've actually got some playground equipment going at Riverside Park. And so all of our equipment is on schedule to be replaced. And this project was the next one to come along. So when she came to us, it was a great time because we could sit down and I could take her through this process. And it's just been a tremendous program. Dustin and I, we talked about in the future working with our baseball team. As Terry mentioned, we've got opportunity to work with the Minnesota Twins rookie team. And Hannah, I might use you for negotiations with the Twins. We're going through that process now. We need a little help with that too. So, but those players come in to us. A lot of them can't speak English. Several of them can. So we hope to maybe partner with this program in the future to help work your students into that and work one-on-one with our players. But Terry mentioned to me, we talked about this, and I hope you see, sometimes it's just easy to talk about something that you believe in. I know y'all have all probably been in that situation, and this program is tremendous. So if you're not involved in it as of yet, please contact them. If you got a need, I'm sure they'll be willing to work with you. It's just been fantastic. And the last thing I want to say is this, I tell our staff this all the time, that we have the ability, our department has the ability to change this community, and we really do. And this program has the same thing. we're one together. We hope our department, Parks and Recreation, can help out in the future. And thank you, Hannah, so much for what you've been doing. And I'll let Morgan know that as well. So anyway, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Fantastic job, Elizabeth, the Parks and Recreation, as you can tell, and they do so much for the community, and they've done so much. It's an honor for us to work together with them as partners. Now we're getting to a very exciting part here. This is the part that I was talking about before the break. Alex Campbell and Sam Church, and what they do is when you look at this program, then the core subjects can be blended together. So you've got English, Sam Church teaches English, Alex Campbell teaches history, and they've worked together to come up with a plan on how to blend those two subjects together. And it's so exciting to see, because if they do it this way, it actually allows, studies show that students learn more by being able to do it in this way, and learning in classrooms this way. But it's so exciting. As I said, I'd love to be a student again, to be in their classroom, because it's amazing what they can do. So I'll turn over now to Alex Campbell and Sam Church.
So it's really nice to have these ideas. When you say you want to change education to make it better, everybody's for that. But really, you got to think, what are your goals and what are your plans, what are your overarching themes, and how do you really translate that into everyday teaching in the classroom? And we did a lot of work on the goals and those things, and now we've kind of transitioned into this. And Sam and I were the first to kind of tackle it. So it's been going pretty well, and let's look at kind of what's going on here. What we want to do is we want to incorporate what's called a house system. A house is 5 dedicated teachers and about 100 students. And all those students will rotate mostly within those 5 teachers. All those teachers will be trying to use the Bartleby model, project-based and experiential learning. We're hoping to have some common planning times. If Sam and I are going to be teaching together, then there needs to be time for us to work together to plan that. So we're trying to get some things like that in there. Of course, Mr. Bowman, we're talking about some things with schedule. Seems like schedule changes every year, almost every year. So we're going to have to adapt with that, but we think we've got some good things there to help the students. They may have to leave the house every once in a while, because some things are just hard for us to replicate. We cannot replicate our band program. Our band program is awesome, more than 100 kids are in it, but that is really a project. The band and the performances they do, so we don't want them to miss that. So there will be times when they can leave culinary, automotive, etc. But for the most time, they'll spend a lot of the times in the house with teachers who are trying to teach project-based learning. Of course, if we're going to be teaching together and getting projects together, we also need to work on grading together. So we'll be getting together and talking about grades and how students are doing and how they're doing those things. And also, we're hoping that, of course, these classes that you're seeing with the community class is what you call elective. And a lot of people say, can this work for your core classes, your math, your English, those type of things? And we can. We're going to have a plan here and lay that out. The house system also allows the teacher to have tremendous knowledge about the students. If I'm the only history teacher, then I will have all the juniors and all the seniors. And the next year, when I get my seniors for world history, I'll know every single student, I'll know every project they've ever done. I'll know their strengths, I'll know their weaknesses, I know who they worked with. So when we start on their senior year, I'm going to say, you know what, that project's ridiculous. You did that same project last year. You just put a new name on it, you know. I want you to do more. Or you know what, last year your biggest struggle was this. So this year in your projects, I want you to work on this. And that's going to be invaluable knowledge that us teachers will have to begin with each year. Daily schedule, in the morning periods, we're thinking about putting the core classes in there. So you'll have a science and math block together in kind of a STEM type subject area. And you'll have history and English. So you'll still have history, and then you'll still go to English. It's just that the teachers are working together on those things. And a lot of times the projects will flow over. And if I'm doing something, let's say Sam's doing something about literature, and I know he's doing this literature piece, and it's about the Great Depression, then that day I'm going to be helping set up his literature by talking about the Great Depression, what all went on. And he doesn't have to do that. I can do that for him. Of course, we're going to have so the science, the math, the history, and English, and computer. And computer will be core supportive. These students are going to be doing lots of projects and creating things and writing proposals. They're going to need some access to some technology, and so they'll be there as well. And of course, there's going to be some time. It may be third. If we change the schedule, it may be fourth or fifth. But there will be some time built in for the students to leave and kind of go to those other elective-based classes that we just mentioned. And of course, they will have passion subjects like they have back here, the community improvement, the entrepreneurial class that starts in January. We might have usually some broad-based classes, something like audiovisual communication, a special topic in history, a special topic in science. And so they can use a passion that they have to create a project, and as long as it applies to that subject, that's where they'll work on those projects. Now this was something that kind of hit me, and I think one of the groups that does a great job of teaching is the Boy Scouts. And they've been teaching for over 100 years, and they don't use textbooks and they don't use lectures. Instead, they say, we want you to show us not what you know, but that you can actually take what you know and do something with it. So I kind of came upon this idea of an academic merit badge. The students have been talking about the standards, and there are lots of standards. But we want to know if they can take those standards and then create something or accomplish something with those. And when they do, they'll receive kind of an academic merit badge. Sometimes people refer to these as a core competency, what you should be able to do in that subject. But we think these merit badges are ways that they can display that they've mastered a skill that we feel is important to success. And that way they can incorporate these into different projects and they can demonstrate that they know how to do them. Now, this is something that Sam and I have been working really hard on. And this is 5 units. I basically broke down U.S. history into 5 units. And I teach from current to past. So we'll be starting at now and moving backwards. So our first unit, you can see Voltaire, Watergate, etc. down through there. Each unit will last about 15 class days, but those classes are blocked. So it'll be 15 history classes plus his 15 English classes. And so we're going to move backwards through those, and we're coordinating between us what's going on. Now there's all the content I have to cover for that first unit, all the standards I have to cover. And there's a lot, and you don't have to read them because I don't want anybody to go to sleep. Next slide. But here's the academic merit badges that I decided that this is what I want students to be able to do with all that stuff they're supposed to learn. Critique the past event or individual, the effectiveness that dealt with the problem. Have a general basis of knowledge that a student can evaluate a current happening and how it relates to things in the past. Link events to past events to current events, and then be able to expound upon similar events with historical knowledge, etc. So these are things they can demonstrate. And although that sounds pretty good too, exactly how that works in the classroom took a little work as well, so we'll look at those. Now, Sam, you want to say something about your English standards?
Sure. Hello, I'm Sam Church. I'm relatively new to Bartleby. I'm kind of lucked into, I didn't have to do any work on the front end. I just got to come in and kind of reap the benefits of it. So before I get into this, because I'm going to regale you with the tale of how English standards came about. It's going to be really long, really lengthy, and incredibly entertaining. So just sit back, relax, and just wait for it. But first, I want to say, as we as teachers and partners and educators get up here, I just want to say, I've known Sadie Whitehead since her 8th grade year. And I can name every single one of these that I've gotten to know, either by nickname or by real name, over the last 5 years. Yeah, sorry, Skeen. But to see Sadie up here today and teaching her in 8th grade and seeing her today, come on, this is phenomenal. I couldn't be more proud of all of you as I see you back there. And just wonderful job, seriously. It has nothing to do with me, but I feel like I should take some credit. But Lawson, to see you back there, man, great job. Okay, now about English standards. It was a dark and stormy night, and so, no, I'm sorry. Okay, so these are the ELA standards. And Campbell, you put this together, right?
Yes,
this 2-point font that you use to get these all in here?
2-point font,
yeah.
slash down.
So this is, kind of what we're expected to do as an English language arts teacher within a very small amount of time. So how do we condense that? So in combination with Campbell helping me along, because I am new. We condensed these down to academic merit badges. So I'm going to be as brief as I can, but I feel like these deserve some sort of explanation. So number one, develop empathy for literary characters and their situations. Reading literature is there to help individuals learn about the world through others' eyes. Empathy. Literature exists, good literature exists, so that we can learn about other cultures, about other people, and about other time periods that don't exist now. And hopefully the experiences that these people have had that we won't have to experience. But we want to read about them, we want to know why these decisions were made, why these particular characters did these certain actions. So there's a fantastic TED Talk, and TED Talk is kind of teacher speak for day off. If you know, because, yeah. So there's a TED Talk called The Language of Experience, and this fantastic speaker spoke about the language of experience, and he started the TED Talk by saying, how many languages do you speak? He was asking the audience, how many languages do you speak? And, people were like, yeah, maybe 2 or 3, I know a few words in a few certain languages, something like that. And so he goes on to talk about, really the most important language that we all have in common is the language of experience, where you can go and have an amazing experience and come back and try to tell your best friend in the world, the person you've grown up with for 20, 30, 40 years about that experience. And they just look at you kind of like, okay, that sounds great. But you can walk up to a stranger and say, say a stranger overhears that conversation like, oh, I've done that before. And that language of experience automatically binds you. Even though you've never spoken or met that person, that experience binds you with them. And you have a commonality there. You have something you can talk about, that we've experienced this thing together, whatever it is. And so empathy, through reading stories about other people and other cultures a century ago, when we read about To Kill a Mockingbird, the Great Depression, the racism that existed then and today, well, how is that still relevant? And we read about it, and like, that in some small part allows us to have that same experience that Scout and Jim and Atticus Finch all had in that story, in that narrative. We get to share that with them in a very small way that connects and binds it with people who are probably experiencing that today. Okay, that's the longest one I'm going to go on. All right? Understand the sequence of events that lead a character, or historical or fictional, to make his decisions. So yes, is this standards-based? Absolutely. Our standards talk about plot development, character development. How is a plot developed? How do complex characters develop over the course of a text? Sure. But we are teaching this as a humanities course. Now, humanities is not a relatively new term. You know that humanities is a college thing. You take a humanities course. So we're teaching this as a humanities course. So even though we are hitting standards, we're still talking about, did this character make this decision because they didn't have a choice? Because they're victims of circumstance? Or are they choosing to do that? So it's a humanities perspective that's still hitting the standards as we read literature. How to passionately and effectively communicate with others through writing. Obviously, we have to hit on this. And all the students that you've heard today, I think, have passionately communicated with you very effectively. So we're going to hit those writing standards, obviously. Nuance and subtlety of writing. The ability to recognize and analyze the author's tone. So with tone, we're talking about tone and mood, rhetoric, bias. This is the best and the worst of times to be a consumer of information, of knowledge. We're inundated. It's everywhere you look. So how do we sift through an author's bias or their rhetoric to actually get to that central idea of what they're trying to say? Are they trying to manipulate us through the use of rhetoric, through the use of bias? And we want our students to be knowledgeable on what the information that they're receiving. Can they sift through that and kind of get to, what is this person really trying to say? Because I feel like they're trying to scare me with this, logical fallacy of appeal to fear. So how do we sift through that and actually see where they're going and what their point is? What is their agenda here? What are they trying to get across? Possess the ability to research a topic. Number 5, to create an argument that uses research evidence both for and against their supposition. And all of these, I think, you kind of see they do work together. So to research, to sift through information, and then create an argument, a passionate argument that recognizes the counterclaim, that recognizes the other side of the argument, but still continues their argument. Like, I understand what this person's saying, but I'm going to continue on my side. I think it makes it a well-rounded, just a better argument. So, yeah, this does encompass all of our standards, I promise. All right, I'm going to move on really quickly. So readings used in combination with Alex and myself. So we're putting these up there just as an example of as a history and English block together, where we're teaching them basically together. We're not just focusing on literature. We have speeches, news articles, primary sources, interviews with Timothy McVeigh, obviously Tim O'Brien, the things they carry. So we are using literature pieces. We're a combination of, again, primary sources, interviews, newspaper articles, literature pieces, speeches from presidents, where as an English teacher, we're going to be delving into the rhetoric, the rhetorical devices that they used in there. The literature pieces, we're going to be talking about the symbolism, the allusions, all of those things. And from the history side, I mean, it just fits right in. This is the way that English and history should be taught. And I'm just kind of confused as to why we haven't all done this. So this is not an exhaustive list, but this is just a sample of, we're hitting a multitude of different sources and types of literature for our students. All right?
One of the things that I think a lot of people fear is if I spend half my time on projects, I'll never get all the content in. But the problem is, for too long, Sam has been expected to give a tremendous historical perspective about what was happening when his literature was created. And for too long, they've been trying to make me work through the literature part. The only thing we're doing now is letting Sam do what he's good at and letting me do what I'm good at, and we don't have to do it twice. That will save time. Number 2, when they work through these projects and work on these academic merit badges, you can see they will have to include all of the state standards to achieve those. So we think it's actually going to maximize a lot of time. And the other thing is, I can get a kid to memorize it, but if they learn it through a project, they'll never forget it. We'll spend less time reviewing, for example. So we really think we're not going to lose a lot of time that way. And the other thing is they get to integrate the classes. Instead of they can only use what they're learning in Sam's class and Sam's class, they're going to be forced to use what they're learning in multiple classes together to accomplish the project, which, if you remember back to the original idea of Bartleby, is exactly what we're looking for. Now, we decided on this first unit project. We realized we've got a lot of juniors coming in. This is U.S. history and then English 3, these are junior classes. And maybe they've never really learned project-based before. So we wanted to give them a project that combined some freedom, some passion for them, with also a lot of structure. And since we had to talk about tech founders and technology, we decided on a Wikipedia page. The students will be forced to create a Wikipedia page that does not exist currently. But it has to be about something that they care about. And it had to happen in the first unit time period, which I believe was 1970, 73 until now. So they get the passion, whatever they want to talk about, but they also have to do the research. They also have to use all those grammar things that he talked about, proper grammar, the sentences, the structure. They're going to have to include why it was important, what did it cause, what caused it. That's all our history stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that one. And there is a lot of structure in place for this one, and we hope that this is a good place to start for the students. And as they continue through the course, we can kind of scaffold them in to project-based learning and maybe a little bit more freedom as they go. And by the time they leave their senior year, we're hoping to see a lot more projects like these, where they can be driving down the road and say, wow, there's a problem in the community. I'm going to move and fix it. So how do we get them from never done it before to I'm a master of looking at my community, finding problems, and then finding the people that can help me solve them? And we think projects like this will help. This project will hit those A and Bs in English and in history, and of course, tons of the specified standards that we showed you before that you couldn't see because they were too small. Now, we're going to try to do like a 1-to-1 ratio, thereabouts, of time that the students spend working on projects and the time that Sam and I spend trying to help them figure out what they need to finish these projects. So if you think about the 5 units, you've got about 15 real teaching weeks in each semester. You can see how it really breaks down. It's about 30 combined classes for each unit. So that'll be about 15 class periods on the project and about 15 class periods that we're actually disseminating information to you. You also saw the 8 readings that we can split up any way we want. If he wants to spend more time on the O'Brien literature piece, and I want to spend more time on the Osama bin Laden letter to America, where I can frame it a little better historically, we'll get together each unit, or maybe even each day, and talk about what we need to do as teachers to divide that best to help the students. And of course, as they work on their projects, I'm going to be moving around. And when I see that these students, if we're in a section on the 50s and 60s, and everybody's experiencing problems with what was so big about the Vietnam War, why was everybody so mad? Why is every song about Vietnam? Then that tells me that in the coming up class periods where I get to have a little more instruction with them, I need to meet that need. I need to tell them what they need to know about Vietnam, why it was a big deal, so that their projects make sense to them. I'm actually letting them get the question first, and then I'm going to respond to the problems they have, and I'm going to fill those gaps with the information that I can give them. And of course, he'll be doing the same thing. Whenever they start creating a Wikipedia page, when he sees real gaps in their knowledge about English, he can fill those in with what they need to know to do a good job. So, we actually want to teach them the skills involved to solve the problem of the Wikipedia project without really mentioning the Wikipedia project first. We think to write a good Wikipedia article, you need to select your item, your person, place, time, event, whatever, and of course something that you're passionate about. Of course, this will require them to look at Wikipedia. Find 5 articles. If you choose a politician, look at 5 politicians' Wikipedia pages, see how other people are talking about it. Summarize an article about your topic that kind of shows where it belongs in the larger scope. There'll be another assignment where they research an article that someone considers an authority. 2 more projects. One that'll say, this is how it was good. And another one where someone says, no, I don't agree with that. I think this thing was bad. So they're going to have to do all those, what I call kind of sub-skills that will help them write the Wikipedia article, but they're not even writing the Wikipedia article yet. So that's how that'll break down into smaller, those are kind of daily projects. They can do those all within a 1 class period. So the big deliverable, though, is, for example, a Wikipedia article. Select this event, something you're passionate about that doesn't have a page, and create it. And, for example, we mentioned that one thing, pick the topic. Even within the picking the topic, the 1-day assignment, there's 3 things they're going to have to do a good job. Brainstorm a list of things that they're interested in, that they're passionate about. They have to actually look at Wikipedia and see if the page exists. And then they have to make sure that their topic they selected fits within that time window of 1973 present. So you can see there's a big project that takes 3 weeks, and then within that there's smaller mini assignments, and then within each mini assignment there's actually things they need to do to accomplish those goals. Now, after a week or so to complete the 6 sub-skill mini projects you just looked at, then they're actually going to be told what they're doing. You're going to have to create this Wikipedia page. So now, that's a big thing. Create a page that doesn't exist. That's kind of scary. But now that they've done all those sub-skills, they have every skill they need to do the big project. We've broken them down and given them to them ahead of time. So without knowing it, they've actually built the skills they need. Also, without knowing it, they have really been thinking about how people create Wikipedia pages, how people research historical events, how people see historical events, how to write so that when other people all over the world read it, it makes sense. And what you'll find in each of those sub-skills, that every single one of them relates back to the academic merit badges, both in history and in English. Sam, we're kind of off script now because we had these things, and like, you want to take this or you want me to do this? Let me do the histories, how about that?
Okay, yeah.
So
Go ahead.
those are the things we showed you a minute ago on the left, those are the history. If you remember, one of the things we said that adults need to be able to do, and we want our students to be able to do by the time they graduate, is critique of past action of individuals and their effectiveness in dealing with the problem in which they were trying to address. That is covered in those sub-skills that we're going to require them to do. Because remember, they had to find people that disagreed and said this was a bad idea. We had to find people that said, no, that was a great thing to do. We've got to find that authority, that person that people really respect, and maybe their voice is a little louder than everyone else's. We pay a little bit more attention to that. So even within this project, you can see we're hitting all of our academic merit badges, which we think is important for the adults to be able to do.
We'll go back to that. We'll come back to the question journal in just a second. So for ELA, for English in this project, we're not going to put it on the screen, but just really quickly, obviously the writing. Using, not to get too Englishy, which isn't a word, but I'm going to use it anyway, a multitude of sentence types. We have 4 sentence types, and very rarely do you see students using all 4 of those, but when we communicate orally, we're using a multitude of sentence types. That's just the way that we communicate. So how do we get them to, as they say, find their voice, which is use a multitude of sentence types to write in the way that we speak, so that when you're reading something, it sounds like it's something, I can read this. This makes sense to me. And oftentimes, it's a variety of punctuation, it's a variety of sentence types that we're trying to emulate through writing how we communicate. So the way we do that is through a multitude of sentence types and varying those types of sentences. Our punctuation has to be correct, our syntax has to be correct. We have to know our audience. Who is our audience here? How do we write to that audience? So that's hitting one of, obviously, a huge standard for us, just writing in general. As far as understanding a historical event or a historical person, as you research that person or that event, you're researching the good and the bad. So when we talk about empathy, we're talking about putting yourself in someone else's shoes, viewing it from their perspective. So you're getting a multitude of perspectives as you're researching to write this. Understanding historical characters or events and the things that led up to those things happening. Obviously, you're getting that here too. Why did this happen? Did it have to happen? What was the aftermath of that? You're researching all of those things, which really correlates and relates back to literature and how a narrative evolves and plays itself out. So, I think it's perfect. I think it's great.
One of the other things that I find disturbing sometimes, I'll ask my students, what are you good at or what do you like? And a lot of them can't tell me one. Sometimes they can give me one thing, but they can't give me 2. And I think it's sad that, I don't know, kids' lives are so filled up with whatever it is they're filled up with, they never get to learn about what they like. They never get to learn about themselves. So we want them to develop the passion. The one thing all these students have in common is they are passionate about their projects, and they have poured more hours than are in the class into those projects to make them successful. If we can help these kids figure out their passion and what they like, I think every kid would want to work extra. If you think about Wikipedia itself, no one got paid to create Wikipedia. Yet that is the largest encyclopedia in the world, and people did it on their free time because they were passionate about each page they created. So we want to help the kids develop the passion. The problem is a lot of them don't even know what they like. So we want them to keep this question journal. When people use their passion, they can do amazing things. We feel that passion comes from personal interest, but a lot of them don't know what they're interested in. So we think personal interest will come from curiosity, and the curiosity comes from questions. So we want them to keep the question journal. And it's not just for English journal. It's not just for me, the history journal. But as they're researching and they say, why did this character do this? Why did this politician make this decision? If everybody said don't do it, why did he do it? Those are all questions they can write down. It might spark interest in them. It might help us how we're supposed to teach them the next day so they can make sense of it so they can do the project. So they'll keep this journal for both of us. And we're going to use it to find the gaps in their learning. What do they don't know? What can't they make sense of on their own? And how we can fill that And hopefully, by the time they're seniors, they'll really be able to do this themselves. Why did this happen? Why didn't it happen this way? I don't understand this. Where do I need help? And they'll be able to maybe do that a little bit more on their own. And that's the whole point, is to scaffold them into it so that they can learn to do this on their own instead of having Sam and I kind of send over them and tell them how they should do it. And as you can see back here, a lot of those kids talk about they learn through that process. Yeah, that's our last thing, and we could talk about this for a long time. Sam and I have had a lot of early mornings talking about it. And after it's over, there's some times for question and answer. If you're interested in the learning and the classroom part, feel free to come and talk to us. We'd be glad to talk to you more about that.
And we're almost finished here. Dustin's going to mention something real quick. I'm going to mention something. We're going to have Kayla come up. But Dustin, some really important part about this Bartleby is the partnerships. And so the partnerships occur in a number of ways. And Dustin's been very much involved in working with the XQ schools and then also working with local schools. We've had a lot of our teachers go out to various different districts and speak at conferences, been invited to speak in order to initiate the other districts into what we're doing here at Bartleby. So here's Dustin Hensley.
Thank you. So I have a PowerPoint somewhere, but there it is. So you notice when you're very passionate about something, it's hard not to talk about it. You just want to keep talking about it. So I'll not do that. But the librarian thinks we can't talk much. So with Execute, they're not this like random shadow organization across the country that tells us what to do. That they give us a bunch of money, but they've also been very good partners, that they really care about what we want to accomplish in our school. That they just don't like show up and say, well, you're doing that wrong, change what you're doing, we give you money. That they really support us and our ideas, and that's been wonderful to see. That they're giving us resources, and they really care about our school and our students. They're constantly asking, what are your students doing? That Caleb Skeen, he's been on one of the video chats with me with XQ, that they had so many questions for him, like, how is this experience for you? Are you enjoying Bartleby? How are you growing as a student because of this project? So they've offered us so much in regards to resources, that they allowed us to take a course through MIT on learning more about education and launching innovation in schools, which was an amazing experience to have. We're working with Stanford University, and they're doing research on emotional intelligence. So how do you quantify emotional intelligence? I know that's a lot of jargony stuff, but how do you look at data and say this person grew as a human being, that they're more empathetic? So we're working with them on that. Then just Execute Institute, they're always offering us resources. That here are some things we've been researching. Here to see how that can apply to your school. There's an institute called Rally that's a public relations company that they have offered us our own media coverage person. That this person, Lana, is going to cover all our stuff for us and help write articles for national news sites for what we're doing at Bartleby. There's the Inside Out project. If you've not been to the high school in the last few months, there's our project inside of the conference when you first come in that you've got to come and see. It was an amazing process to be part of. It's this international art project that they're going to show the work we did with our art in our school on an international basis. And then also we got to be part of the XD Super School Live, which was on the 4 major news networks. Then also we're partnering with other XQ schools. There's 18 schools in the country that were selected XQ schools that were given large grant amounts to try to change how we think about high school. So we've been having a lot of calls and such with these other schools. How can we work together to learn more? That Sci High in Florida, Crosstown High in Memphis, and Iowa Big, that we've talked with them about helping better our process of creating community partners. That I've talked with Washington Leadership Academy about how to better use the technology that we have. In Circulos High in California, talking about how do we create empathy for each other. That in their school there's 90% Hispanic population. So they know nothing about what life is like here, other than what they hear on the news, that we're the awful, hateful, racist people. But then we don't know much about them, that we don't have that kind of population to understand their students and their perspective. They're just awful liberals out west. So how do we learn more about each other to where we can be empathetic and have care for each other as Americans? And then also Summit Shasta does a lot with youth empowerment, so I've been talking with them, that how do you select the courses you offer that students vote on, that discuss with the teachers. So partner with local schools, that I was just telling our lovely state representative that I don't believe in school competition, that I believe in us all working together to create the best Carter County, Elizabeth, and Northeast Tennessee, Appalachia, American possible. that whoever wants to work with us, we want to work with them too. That if there's a project that's a large scope, how can we work with other schools on that? That I've been talking with our Spanish teachers about creating bilingual information for people in Appalachian Trail. That there's a lot of people from Europe that come on the trail. So how can we give them tour guides and such in those other languages as they come through? So could we craft that information with our school? We have Spanish and French, there's no German. There's a lot of Germans that take the Appalachian Trail. So we need to partner with the school that has a German course so we can have German curriculum for that as well. So we want to work with other schools, whether it be the Carter County schools or anyone in the state of Tennessee or outside of Tennessee. How can we work with you to make this the best Carter County possible? That's what we really care about. We cannot, this program is about without partnerships, whether it be schools or individuals, organizations, government officials, that this project is fully dependent upon the community wanting to work with our students and accepting our students. And allowing our students to learn from you and work with you, not just to be some kid to show up and do something for you, but to be able to learn how to survive in this area to make it better. That Stanford just released some research that showed that the biggest impact on someone becoming innovative and an inventor is being around successful people. That it showed that test scores had no indication on so if someone was being innovative or not, or be able to create things and get patents. But that had no indication whatsoever. It was, are they surrounded by people that are innovative and successful? That was the biggest indicator. So we want our students to be around you all. They can learn from you and become successful and innovative because you all are. So how can you help give that to our students too? So partnerships is the lifeblood of what we're trying to accomplish. So we really appreciate all of the partnership we've gotten from you so far, and we want to keep doing it with you all in the future. Thank you.
The last thing that I want to mention too is to thank college partnerships, and I've gone around and we've met with a number of colleges, and they're really working with us closely in partnership. And Dr. Paul Pinkley, who is here from Tusculum, thank you for coming, and Kristen and Rita from Milligan, and some others. But it's so great to have you here, and we really appreciate you coming, and that's a great partnership for us also. And the last thing that we want to do is we actually had some students, and the historic walking tour was a big project for us. But we had a couple of our students who were in that. Lawson's done a great job with it, but two of his partners weren't here today because they're taking a state test. But they worked very closely with the Chamber of Commerce here in Elizabeth and Carter County, and Cato Carter, who's worked with them, done a tremendous job. And so we wanted her to not only give a perspective of the historic walking tour for us, but because it's so exciting to bring a lot of people to Elizabethton, but also so that she could talk about her experience there with working with our students. So Kayla.
Hi everybody. I do feel like I need to start off by saying I've recently made a transition, so I want to reintroduce myself. You guys probably formerly know me as the Carter County Tourism Coordinator working with Tanya at the Chamber of Commerce. I recently took a position with our Regional Economic Partnership focusing on outdoor recreation. But when I think back to the position that I just left, which I was in last week, this is probably my favorite part of that role, being able to work with the students here with the Bartleby project. The walking tour was something that was put in my lap. The very first day I started at the chamber, they recognized that it hadn't been updated since the 90s. Some of the information in there as far as restaurants were out of date. But the history involved didn't change. It's just it needed to be brought into the current realm of how things work. And one thing that inspired me to work with Dustin, he reached out and he had a group of students they were interested in doing an augmented reality for the walking tour, which included being able to use your phone and it brings up a video and it tells the history about it. And I just thought, wow, what a vision. So all that to say, the students really inspired me to take this asset that we have here in the community and breathe new life into it. Just like the program, I think, is doing that on the community level as a whole. I do also think that when they talk about the interdisciplinary, it's tourism. They learned a lot about how tourism works, but it's also educational for them to learn about the history side of things. So I think that was really important. The other thing is it made them evangelists for the community. They, were able to go out and tell their friends, hey, I learned this thing about downtown. It's really cool. Maybe we should go out and check it out some other time. They were taking people out to go look at all these different things that they had never really seen before until they took on the project. So it made them ambassadors for the community, which actually in turn helped me do my job as the tourism coordinator, which is, have people going out and helping me promote and saying good things about the community and getting people to come visit. So in the same respect, I'm really blessed to have been a part of this process, and I hope to continue to be a partner in that. But also wanted to say, just like the students are evangelists for the community now, I will always be an evangelist for this program. I really believe in the impact that it's making. So, thank you.
Thank you all for coming. It's been a tremendous opportunity for us to get to meet so many more people, and for our students. The students are going to stay back there and answer some questions and everything. If you want to go back and speak to them anymore. We'd love to have anybody that's not already a partner with us. I think most of the people, everybody's in here is a partner for the most part. Anybody that's not, if you'd like to, come up, and the teachers are going to be up here, and you come up and speak to them, ask them any questions. If you're in the educational side, if you're interested in in wanting to be a partner, you just take your name tag and give it to them with your contact information, or a business card or anything like that. But it's been a fantastic experience. Thank you so much for you guys being here. We've been to take your time and to spend with it. And as you can see, we overran a little bit from what we expected, but when you have a group of teachers that are so passionate and love what they're doing so much, that they really, they almost can't contain themselves with the passion that they have. And thank you so much for sitting here with us and everything, and we really appreciate you guys all being here for us here today. And it's been a great pleasure. Thank you very much. One more applause, if you would, please, for our 4 presentations of our student presentations.